You're listening to From the Midlands, the stories of people making a difference across the region. Our presenter is Gail Downey.
Hello, and on this episode of From the Midlands, we'll be hearing from the region's best read business publication, the editor Kurt Jacobs, who runs the West Midlands edition of Insider magazine. Kurt, welcome. Tell me how business is doing here.
That's a very good question. You're getting business in a big state of flux at the moment. Having coming out of COVID, there are huge opportunities with things like moving to digital formats. Electrification is a big issue. The whole green economy. These are massive things which are coming up. But at the same time, a lot of businesses are having to carry major issues. For example, skills is the number one issue at the moment. It is absolutely crippling many businesses. They simply can't get the skilled people that they need. The wages having to be paid are absolutely sky high. And demands of staff now for flexibility and agile working are increasing. So they're having to change the way they look at the world. Things like electrification will transform automotive, rail and aerospace, which are the biggest employers in this region. But with lots of winners, there are going to be lots of losers. So, for example, those which can produce a better way of making a battery or more efficient wheels are going to do superbly well. Those who make those little grommets they've been making for generations to go on a diesel, frankly, their days are numbered. So, as with most times of big change, there are winners and there are losers. There are also issues a lot of companies are still carrying a lot of debt from lockdown, which they have to pay off. Now, there are lots of options for doing that, but they're having to plan ahead and do that. On top of this, you've got Brexit as well, which we still haven't felt the full effect of, good or bad.
So what do businesses say to you when they speak to you and when you come to do stories about them? What kind of skills do they need?
Really, it's across the piece, as it were. I mean, digital skills, for example, fairly basic ones, are at an absolute premium. It's now got to the point, if you have any capability in the digital field, you can name your salary, effectively. And because the way digital now works, I don't mean digital in just sitting in front of a computer. I mean digital in terms of the way it affects whether you work in an accountancy, or you make cars, or you run a law firm. Digital skills for those. Of course, people can work remotely, which means, for example, somebody who's good at these skills can Friday afternoon say, I'm working for this firm, get a job offer, literally double the salary. Monday morning work for another firm and still be working from the same bedroom they have been for the past 2 years. So it's no big issue. The other thing, it's not just digital though, is increasing demand about what people want from their employer. So increasingly it is things like agile working. It is issues like mental health, which is a really big issue. It is issues like sustainability and diversity. For example, one story today, I can't name the company obviously, won't get funding because simply the company is too white. And the funder said, no, we're simply not touching you. And lots of businesses have to wake up very quickly. It's no longer sort of an issue of the candidate has to sell themselves to the business. The business has to sell themselves to the candidate. And that is not going to change for the near future.
And is that something you reflect in the stories that you cover?
Yeah, increasingly. So, for example, I do lots of things called roundtables where we get a group of, say, 10 to 12 experts in a certain sector around a discussion. Increasingly, I'd have diverse panel, both in terms of gender and ethnicity. Otherwise, it simply looks false. It doesn't reflect what's going on in the Midlands. For example, let's take Birmingham, which is the next decade or two, depending who you speak to, will become the first major European city with a white minority. We can't afford to be this overwhelmingly white male magazine anymore. We have to reflect what's going out there, or simply our readers will desert us. We won't have credibility.
And the businesses that you feature in your magazine, there is a wide range of business and business people from all kinds of backgrounds. Over the last 10 years, has that changed in terms of there are more people from ethnic minorities, more women running businesses?
Oh, without a doubt. What has been fascinating is, let's take the professional service, for example. They are acutely aware, almost very sensitive, to the fact they have to be diverse. Not just because they want to show that they are, because they've suddenly realised it actually makes good economic sense. So it's almost like enlightened self-interest. We have to be diverse and show we're diverse to get the clients we want. But it also actually improves the way they work, the fact that their boards think in different ways, are more creative. That is, on a side issue, increasingly businesses are looking for creativity. I don't mean sort of drawing or the ability to handle a paintbrush. They're looking for staff who can come up with solutions rather than simply being told what to do. Also, we're finding amongst women and minorities, there's this massive explosion of entrepreneurship. It's quite overwhelming. We covered a conference in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago. To plug my own magazine, it'll be covered in the next issue, about black entrepreneurs. To a large extent, they've not been involved in areas like technology, for example. That's changing, and it's changing at a huge rate, and really welcome. And those sectors are performing better because of that change.
I know on From the Midlands in the past we've featured some entrepreneurs who obviously have gone into it because it's a business and it makes money, but actually there's generally an ethical reason as well. They've done it because they feel something, for example, a musical company that makes trombones, plastic trombones. They, his passion was to try to get every child to have the opportunity to play a musical instrument. Are you finding that is also different in terms of the new breed, if you like, of entrepreneurs coming through?
Yeah, I mean, to work on another way, I think it affects entrepreneurship, but it also affects the new generation, the sort of Gen Zs coming through. Our job has to have a purpose. So I come into work from 9 to 5:30, which is increasingly ending. I take home a wage at the end of the month. Is not enough. Increasingly, people are demanding, why do I come here? How I'm making a difference in the world? And it's the same with entrepreneurs. Show me an entrepreneur who's in it for the money, and I'll show you an entrepreneur who's probably going to fail fairly quickly, because frankly, money is not going to get you through the difficult times. So they have to show a passion that they are changing the world, that they're actually making a benefit, they're making a difference.
So what's your passion in terms of the Insider magazine?
Oh God, that's a difficult question, isn't it, Gail? I'm quite old-fashioned. I came into this trade for two reasons many years ago. One was because I'd like to make a living out of writing. It's the simple pleasure of putting one word in front of another. But the second was, as you know yourself, it's the ability to stick your nose into other people's businesses. It's a license to be nosy. Go on, tell me more about that. Why are you doing that? And it's amazing what people will tell you. Unbidden. They will reveal most incredible things. Some of it you can't print, but it's just that genuine sort of, wow, you discover more about the world. Just, it gets you out of your office, it gets you out of the desk, and you get to chat to people.
I'm always surprised about the features you write, I have to say, because the people you feature, there was a woman who started doing collagen, she sells collagen.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was a pharmacist who's now in your July edition, who's now set up quite a big scientific business, and how from small acorns, as they say, these businesses grow.
Well, good. You point out that lady who set up the collagen business. That relates back to you saying about a few moments ago about passion. She literally stumbled into setting up a business. It wasn't how sort of, I'm going to improve the world. It's sort of, she was making this stuff out of fish oil, felt great about it, and just wanted to tell other people. That was it. The business was almost an accident. It's like the chap who set up a firm called Grenade. Surprisingly, it's now the best-selling chocolate bar in Britain. And all he wanted to do was to make a really nice tasting chocolate bar that was healthy, because he was seriously into his fitness. Those are perhaps the cases which come forward. It's almost the accidental entrepreneur rather than the sort of person who says, right, I am going to make $1 million. It's sort of, I want to prove something. The best business people who come across who sort of almost get angry with the world is that I'm going to prove I am right. It's like the person we both know who makes plastic trombones. Now he's conquering America with these things. And all he wanted to do was, he loves trombones. He noticed that children weren't playing them. I want to take my passion for music and get them to do it as well. How do I do it? Trombones are expensive. I need to make something that's cheap. Voila, I'll make a plastic trombone. Brilliant. Or somebody else I was speaking to, she's absolutely dedicated to making sustainable pet food out of flies. Basically, she's got a thing called the soldier fly. You get the chrysalis, grind it up, and feed it to your dog or your cat. Now, she spent ages getting the taste right and so forth. Again, it's that passion. How do I get something, an insect, and give it to a dog? Dogs love it, cats love it, and she's the sort of person who's going to make a fortune. The money for many entrepreneurs isn't that important. Yes, they want to make a living. They're not foolish. They're not naive. Yes, they want a nice house. They'd like a nice car. That's not what gets them up in the morning. What gets them up in the morning is that wish to prove to the world, what can I do that's different today? Most of them have an incredibly low boredom threshold. And basically, they're trying to keep themselves occupied and driven. And the money, they make money, so much the better.
Just going back to the magazine, and these are great stories that you tell in the magazine. You have a very high quality hard copy of the magazine, and you're also online as well. How do you manage to sustain a hard copy when so many business publications seem to have gone down the online route only?
Number one is, somebody pointed out a few years ago, if they'd had money to invest back in the 1990s, they'd have put it into paper. And this is the time there was paper. We're going to have the paperless office. I'm just looking outside through this door at the absolute chaos we've got here. Paper everywhere. People still use paper. You can't underestimate the sort of tactile feel of a magazine. It belongs in the same way people still love vinyl. You know, it's something you can hold, you can bend, it can be yours. But what it does mean is that we've had to change the way we think. We can't think in any ways as sort of the magazine and nothing else. So, for example, the magazine I do carries very little news. Why? Because anything I print is going to be out of date almost within days. It's not in days. If you're an hour late online, you've missed your boat. So, who's going to read a magazine that comes out a week later? So, increasingly, the magazine is about issues, it's about personalities. Things which don't date. Something you can sit back perhaps and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and take your time and pick things up. Not quite leisure reading, but read at your leisure. While digital is fast, quick and so forth. But what we can't do is have them working in isolation. So really for our business we've got three main props. One is the digital, one is the magazine. The third are the events, which range from roundtables where we get a series of experts around to discuss a topic, or they can be a breakfast event where we have a panel of experts to an audience of say 60, 70 business leaders, or even a black tie awards do. And the trick is to get them to feed off each other. So you use online to promote the event, you'll cover the event in a magazine, so forth. So the event is in isolation. There are things feeding into it and things feeding out of it. And we make money by balancing those three.
And how do people get coverage in your magazine? You once said something around, I hate press releases that have the quote that says, I'm delighted, because you said, of course, people should be delighted to either win more business, take on more staff, whatever it is.
I get press releases and I cut them down very quickly. And I look for words like, we are delighted, because that's a good sign I can cut that paragraph out. Waste of time. Don't tell me how delighted you are. Show me how you're delighted you are. If you want coverage in a magazine, number one, a decent photograph helps, because this is still a very image-driven society.
And should that be landscape or portrait?
Both. It's one thing I can't stand is photographs of middle-aged men like me looking serious. It's an absolute killer. Show me people doing things. So, a good example. If you are a manufacturing business and you've done something great, don't have a photograph of the boss looking smug with himself. Show me the junior tapping away and doing something really interesting. Show the workforce. Show how you're different. And move away from the cliches. As you say, Gail, I'm delighted. Well, of course you are. You've just made money. Tell me something different. Don't start with something like reach out. If you're not a member of the Four Tops, don't reach out to me. Let the passion come through and everything else will follow. Do it passionately, keep it short, check the spelling, and you'll get coverage. It's quite simple.
Kurt Jacobs, thank you very much, and for those tips as well. Thank you.
You've been listening to From the Midlands, a Whirlwind production. If you've enjoyed listening and would like to sponsor this series of podcasts, details are available on our website at fromthemidlands.co.uk.